Men of worship, it's time to gather. Life Church International presents the Gathering of Men Conference and March Convocation from Wednesday 5th March to Sunday 9th March 2025. The theme is Isaiah 37 verse 31, shall again take root downward and bear fruit upward. The guest minister is Bishop Dr. Charles Kwake from JCC Mombasa, hosted by Apostle David and Pastor Sonte Juma. This meeting will be taking place at the Apostolic House, Kenya Cinema Plaza, along Moi Avenue. Men, rise up, take root, and bear fruit. Be there, be transformed.
Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of the GG Report. My name is Godfrey Gichuki and I'm your host tonight. And I want to welcome you to a very, very exciting and important conversation. And as always, the GG Report is a platform for big, bold, and honest conversations on a broad range of subject matters, as you know, social, cultural, economic, political, legal, and philosophical and theological, if we get there. And today we are actually going to look at a very, very important conversation that we need to have. We're talking about sexualization of children. And I have a wonderful guest with me on the set, and we can't wait to start this conversation. So I'm going to ask my guest just to, welcome you guys. And then after that, I'll give you a quick overview and then we go on from there. So, but before my guest just jumps in, please remember to share. We are live on our social media platform, Elevate TV Kenya, Facebook page, YouTube channel. Please share with your friends, ask them to join us, and let's get this conversation going. So, welcome to the show, Madam Antoninah Achieng.
Thank you.
Very good to have you again.
Yes.
You have been in our studios before.
Yes, I have.
And I am very happy to have you here. So look at that camera and welcome our viewers.
Yes.
And let's get the conversation going.
Welcome, viewers. This is very exciting. I'm so grateful to God for Elevate TV and for having me coming back again. And that simply is to reinstate that the conversation we are having about protecting our children is a most important topic to have. In fact, I would dare suggest that we can't have enough of this conversation. Why? Because as far as posterity is concerned, our children are the most important. And so anyone who dares to endanger our children is doing greater harm than those who go and harm the environment and do other crazy things. Our children, God says, are a gift from Him to us. And so I am looking forward to this exciting conversation, and I invite you, let us engage and let's have this conversation until the giant is felled.
Wow, wonderful. Karibu sana. Welcome. And as Antoninah said, she is here in the studio one more time. We've had her here. And Antoninah is a founder of Mzazi International. Mzazi, that is the intentional parent. That's a program that she works with. And, this week she had an online show and a program just talking about the same subject matters. And I reached out to her and told her, you need to come on the show and let's take this conversation forward. My sister Antoninah, yes. She's a mission pastor at Christ Covenant Church Africa here in Ziwani. And we are very, very happy to have you here. And so, so let's dive straight into the conversation. I always like starting from the place where, first of all, let's talk about you. Yes. You know, let's talk about your journey and how you got to where you are. Why are you doing what you're doing? Yes. What motivates you? Yes. Let's start there, lay that aside, then come talk about the children.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ, and I have walked with Jesus for 35 years now.
Wonderful.
I got saved when I was 10 in a Scripture Union children's camp.
Wow.
That was at Alliance Boys in 1990.
Wow.
Now,
wow.
The interesting thing is I'm a pastor's kid.
All right.
But for the first time when attending that camp, it hit me, I'm a sinner. And I actually need Jesus to save my soul.
Okay.
And so that was my first being able to appreciate the role that Jesus came to play. And so even when I pursue the cause for children and protecting children, the gospel is the bottom line.
Okay.
That is the most important endowment any parent can give to the next generation. And in fact, I truly believe that every business enterprise, every government, every social enterprise exists to protect children.
Right.
Because children are a gift from God.
Right.
I am also a mother. And so, and that is one of the hearts that I carry with great respect and awe. I'm a mother of 7. 3 with Jesus and 4 with me. 3 with Jesus because I went through miscarriages in 2015, one after the other. I didn't understand what was happening because I had had my first 2 children,
right.
A girl and a boy.
Yes.
And I didn't understand, and I'm asking the Lord, and I'm fasting, and I'm asking what on earth could be happening. But thankfully, I had just joined Kenya Christian Professionals Forum. And it's such a coming together of incredible men and women of God who love God passionately. So one of them is a doctor who happened to see me pregnant and then not, and dared to ask. You know, in Africa, we don't talk about some certain things. You see a woman pregnant and then they're not unajijazia. You don't ask many questions. But this one dared to ask. I was like, you know what? This has been happening to me. And I also don't understand what is happening, but I keep getting pregnant and losing it. And that's when he invited me. And said apparently they've been doing a research and they have found that there are so many women in the category of they're unable to get pregnant. 2, many others like me are getting pregnant and unable to carry pregnancy to term. So in their research, they had reached the place of being able to identify that the cause of this is not just happening. It's a tetanus jab.
Okay.
That we women receive when you go for antenatal clinics and all that. So apparently this conversation had been had by Cardinal John Jue. He had made an announcement back then and had said there is something wrong with this tetanus vaccine. It is rendering our women infertile.
Right.
But of course, you know, the governments of the day, when they hear that kind of a thing, they blast it and they say, you church, remain in your place. You have no business. But interestingly, back then when the Prime Minister was, Raila, he came out and said, I can confirm what the Catholic Church is saying is actually true. And long story short, the stories came up. It was true. We had received a jab that was making us infertile. But by the grace of God and courtesy of the support from the Kenya Catholic Doctors Association and this particular doctor, Dr. Wahome, I was able to carry 2 more pregnancies.
All right.
It was a long and arduous journey. It was also very costly, but I have my 2 other children.
Okay.
And so this agenda that we are discussing this evening is just one part of a grander scheme of things.
Yes.
The grander scheme of things is depopulation.
Okay.
Somebody has looked at the statistics and discovered that Africa is majority youth. What do we do with that population? Well, the rest of the world is aging. This is a threat to us.
Okay.
So different strategies have been employed to depopulate the population in Africa. Sexualization is the strategy against our children and youth. Infertility through the tetanus vaccine was a strategy against we as women. Genetically modified organism is a strategy against our foodstuffs. And so on, there are these different strategies. But of course, tonight we're focusing on the sexualization of children because that was my plug-in. So when God sorted me out, I started discovering, wait a minute, this agenda is even bigger than you ever imagined.
That's true.
And Dr. Gichuki, who has since gone to be with the Lord, just came in one of our forums and shared that she had been interviewed by one of the media houses and informed about this comprehensive sexuality education that is going on in a public school in Lavington. And they're teaching children how to acquire sexual pleasure. They're being given male and female genitalia and being shown how to do. And I was like, what? In this country?
Yes.
Here in Nairobi? How? Who in their right minds goes to adolescents and gives them this information? Oh my goodness. That was a question that has remained a quest since then.
Okay. I know, I don't want to stop you, but I think I like, you know, these issues. And since we agree we're going to focus on sexualization of children.
Yes.
And there is this journey that led you to where you are.
Yes.
You know, your battle with the childbearing and the breakthrough, your mother of 4 children, and then discovering all these other, you know, kind of ideas that are floating around and being, you know, kind of like, I would say, imposed on and the world. There is a kind of a global agenda. I think there's no question about it.
That's
that there's a global agenda. I think we have suspicion where those agendas are coming from, and that has created a very complicated and environment for bringing up children.
Yes.
So let alone, first of all, having the children in the first place.
Yes.
So let's talk about Mzazi. So you founded Mzazi, and this is a forum. Maybe you need to tell us a little bit more about this program, the Mzazi program, the International Parents. How did that come about? And then now, then we can talk about the actual, some of the challenges you've faced, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into the sexualization programs and what's going on behind the scenes.
Mzazi, the intentional parent, is an idea that God gave me back in 2022 in October.
Okay.
And of course, having now understood in depth the magnitude of the issues and strategies against our children, my heart was crying out, when will parents get to know? Did a lot of conversations in churches, would go into schools and colleges and create this awareness. And the worst thing was, parents would feel so overwhelmed and go like, what can we do?
All right.
Because you're mentioning big names who are behind this strategy, and people are wondering, how do you go after IPPF? How do you go after UNICEF? How do you go about these big organizations? And the parent kind of feels small. But in October of 2022, the Holy Spirit just quickened me. Begin focusing on what needs to be done. One, of course, parents must be aware. Hosea 4:6 says, my people perish for lack of knowledge.
That's true.
So in other words, the reverse is true. If you give people knowledge, then it will avert the perishing, it will avert the destruction that is impending to everyone who is lacking knowledge. But then number 2 also, we are not so gone overboard that we are helpless. Because there are governments out there who really have their hands tied, and Christians have their hands tied. But not so in Kenya. In fact, if you think about the 2010 conversation of the Constitution, if there is one thing Kenyans across the board were agreeable about, is that we do not want homosexuality.
Okay.
But fast forward to February of 2023.
Yes.
The Supreme Court of Kenya ruled that homosexuality now can, you know, the people can form their own association. What does that mean? They can continue on in their registrations and recruitment. they can fundraise, they can advance their objectives. What does that even mean? They're not looking after, they're not looking for your membership or mine. Who are they going after? The children. And so in February of 2023, God made it very clear. I need parents to arise, address themselves to the sexualization agenda, and especially LGBTQ plus conversation. Now, for me, up to that point, I didn't think LGBTQ was a big thing.
All right.
Because in Kenya, in Africa, it's not been so blatant. Or we hear it out there.
Right.
But then God orchestrated events. I got an invitation in the month of March to participate in the first interparliamentary conference on family protection and sovereignty.
Okay.
It was in Entebbe, in Uganda. And for 2 days, here I am interacting with parliamentarians, ministers who are pro-family from different countries. And what is the repeated message they're pushing across? We did not know this was going to harm our children.
Yes.
One after the other. And they talked about how these organizations came in. These organizations told them, we're bringing in life skills. We want to reduce HIV prevention prevalence. We're going to do this. And don't worry about it. You just sign over here, and we're even going to bring you the training, and we're going to fund the process. Lo and behold.
Wow.
Much later on, people are discovering, wait a minute, we were duped. They were literally having an agenda to sexualize our children. So by the time I came back to Kenya, it was as clear as day. We're going to the grassroots because Mzazi expects the gatekeepers should be aware of these things. In fact, many times you hear serikali's idea. But God is showing me, even those ones in government have been duped. They have signed documents, they have participated in conversations. They did not know that the devil is in the details.
Right.
But right now scrutinizing the documentations, the materials, the curriculum, oh my goodness, it is everything appalling. And just to confirm that, the first time comprehensive sexuality education was actually introduced in Kenya was in 2005.
Okay.
The first place they landed was the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. When the KICD went through this curriculum, this was their decision and conclusion about CSE. They actually said CSE is an abuse to children.
Right.
It goes against our values as the African people. Most people who are religious will not agree to this content. And so they gave it a wide berth.
Yes.
But the people being strategic, they went and funded NGOs and community-based organizations. Where is their target? They went into estates and villages and have been training our children. They also went into school in the guise of life skills, menstrual hygiene training, HIV prevention program. Now, surely as a principal, if you hear people are bringing this content and it's for free, you're not being charged anything.
Yes.
You're like, yes, by all means, go and teach our children. But you're not sitting in the class to see and hear what the children are being taught.
Wow.
And so in 2023, when I came back from Uganda, I asked the Lord, who do I involve in this? And I started just calling out to friends, fellow parents, and saying, this is what I have heard. The gatekeepers, majority don't even know what is going on. There are few who know what is going on, but they have been bought with the mullah. But it behoves each and every one of us to protect your children. I protect my children. If you do your part, I do my part, somebody else does their part. It could be that we have a collaborative effort that we can now speak to the powers that be, that they need to protect our children. So my first business as a parent is to protect my children.
Okay. I'll hold you again. Those of you that are following this conversation, I believe you're getting the idea. We are talking about sexualization of our children. These kind of programs began way back in the past. Since 2005. in a very subtle way, some of these ideas began to be introduced at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development then, and very innocent, you know, that children as young as 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, that they need to be taught about, you know, sexual education, you know, this kind of, they need to know, and in a very, very subtle way. But the first reaction was, this was unacceptable. The people there, I mean, they felt very clearly that there was something wrong with that curriculum. But as my guest here, Antoninah, is explaining to us, things have been going on in the background. And so I really think that we have a real problem here.
Oh, yes.
We have a real problem. Now, maybe before some people get a little bit confused, maybe it's important to actually explain what we mean by sexualization, because sexualization, I believe what we mean, what you're talking about, and you need to clarify, is the outcome of a programming and a training and a teaching and a content that really always does is kind of, you know, create a desire among young people at an age that is definitely not appropriate for them to become sexually active. So
Correct.
I think you need to lay that out so that some of the parents that are following this,
Yes.
they can understand what we're talking about.
Yes.
We're talking about content that is age inappropriate.
Correct.
Maybe just lay that out a little bit more.
And thank you. That's a very good question. And that's why we exist as Mzazi, the intentional parent.
Yes.
Hosea 4:6, if you reverse it, it means the parents need to be empowered.
Yes.
If they are empowered with information, no parent needs to be guided on what to do. You will know what you need to do.
Yes.
Because if this is hot water and you have a 3-year-old crawling, you know what to do to make sure that the child doesn't get burned. So the confusion has been, when we were in school, we went through a certain training, sex education, and we were taught on human anatomy, nothing scary. The comprehensive sexuality education is not that sex education.
Yes.
Comprehensive sexuality education is a unique curriculum that is designed specifically to teach the children from a rights-based perspective that it is their human right to acquire and give sexual pleasure.
Okay.
Comprehensive sexuality education, for example, suggests that as early as age 4, a child should be taught on how to masturbate.
Wow.
At the age of 6, 7, the child should be taught about acquiring sexual pleasure, girl to girl, boy to boy. Comprehensive sexuality education teaches children who are age 14 and 15 that if they feel they are in the wrong body, they can change their gender, because they talk about gender being fluid and it's a social construct. Okay, so we have organizations like here in Kenya, one called Jinsi Yangu in Mukuru kwa Jenga, that is telling young people, if you feel, you know, people are telling you you're beautiful and you're a boy, but you're beautiful, you have a cute smile, maybe you are in the wrong body.
Okay.
So what do you need to do? They need to start you on hormonal therapy. They need to get you into surgeries and different procedures so that you can change yourself. Now, the danger of this curriculum is no one is safe. And I want to bring to our remembrance Elon Musk, one of the richest men alive. Last year, he came up with an article and he said how he lost his son. So apparently, while he is busy doing what he does, a curriculum has been proposed to his son so that his son already begins to do hormonal therapies, ultimately gets surgeries, and now claims to be a girl. And he did this article, and you can see the sadness on his face, because no parent wants to hear that, because once that child goes that route, there's no coming back as far as fertility is concerned. So there is nothing that can reverse that. So if Elon Musk's son is not safe, Gigi and Antoninah, what makes us think that our children are safe? This curriculum,
Yes.
this curriculum is a danger, and it's a threat to the entire spectrum of humanity, because it is teaching children and aiding children to go ahead and acquire sexual pleasure. Let me give you an example. I've carried a material here. If you look at this material, doesn't it look attractive? This is for a grade 6 child.
Right.
Looks very attractive. It's called Healthy Choices. How did I get this material? A parent walked up to me, found this material inside her daughter's bag. Her daughter was in a boarding school, primary school in Machakos. There are almost like 7 pages of role plays, one page to another. Let me read for you just one role play. This role play is meant for James. Remember, it's grade 6, so we are talking about children who are aged 11, 12, thereabout. This is what the role play reads. James, you and your friends have been drinking and taking bang, marijuana in brackets, as a way to have fun. You have, you have been trying to convince your friend Paul to do the same, but so far you have not succeeded. Today he is telling you that he will be meeting his girlfriend later in the day. You know that he has never had sex with her. Your task, and this is in italics, your task is to convince Paul to take bang so as to have the courage to force his girlfriend to have sex in case she says no. What are we hearing, parents?
That was in a kid's bag.
Grade 6.
Grade 6. In Kenya.
From Machakos. It's only that I won't name the school.
Right.
But I can refer.
Right.
This material, from just that one little paragraph, and there's another paragraph, and there are 7 pages of role play. Right now, children are on midterm. If this is what they're carrying home, what do you think they're doing when you're busy at work?
Oh my goodness.
I am hearing introduction to drugs. I am hearing encouragement to rape. What business does this material have in the hands of an 11-year-old, of a 12-year-old?
That's a huge question. That's a huge question. Like I told you, we have deep and honest conversations here. And I believe by now you probably are getting as angry as I am. Maybe I'm not showing it, but yes, we have trouble here. We have trouble here. Sexualization of our children. These are happening. These things are actually happening in our great republic, and you better be very, very careful indeed. Antoninah, I really think that we have really a problem here.
Yes.
And now I know we're going to take a short break.
Yeah.
And I think we really need to bring to the attention of one and all, teachers, parents, church workers, and maybe even some of your Sunday school kids have been experimenting with some of these things. Correct. And maybe you're a Sunday school teacher and it never bothered you, but you saw maybe somebody were behaving weirdly and you didn't pay attention. It's time for you to wake up. It's time for us to wake up as parents, as teachers, as people who work with children. Our children are in danger. Correct. Antoninah, yes. I think this is whistle-blowing proper. And I believe that the Lord is going to help us. Yes. And as we blow the whistle, something is going to change. Yeah. So we're going to take a short break.
That's fine.
When we come back, we want to return to that conversation. We want to talk about what parents can do, yes, what we can do, and maybe how much we can say, for example, get involved in agitating and fighting for policy change. That's a conversation we need to have. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break. We're coming back to this conversation shortly.
What does it mean to be a man today? It's more than what meets the eye.
A man is defined by his vision. How committed, how clear that vision is to him. We don't need supervision. What we need is a supervision.
It's about the stories, the struggles, and the success.
There is greatness that God has deposited in every man. You are a reservoir of untapped potential.
Welcome to Man Unveiled, the show where we explore the heart of modern manhood.
Why don't we accept the liberation that has been brought to us by the Word of God?
We dive into topics that matter most: relationships, mental health, career challenges, and the journey of self-discovery. Join us and let's unveil the truth together. Man Unveiled, because real men have real stories.
Our spiritual warfare is not carnal, but is mighty through God by pulling down every stronghold. You do not need to fight this battle, kwa sababu hii vita sio yako. Vita vya 2025 sio zako, ni za Jehova. One of the greatest weapons to silence your enemies, it is when you engage God in praise.
Amen.
Wacha wimbo wa sifa uingie ndani ya kinywa chako. Wakati sifa itakapoenda juu, when the praise go up, the power come down.
Welcome back. This is the Gigi Report, and we are having an amazing conversation here talking about sexualization of our children. And I am telling you, we're just wondering what to tell and what not to tell. But I tell you that there are people with an agenda to actually do as much damage to young children, young, very innocent children as possible. Unfortunately, this is happening in our country. There are schools, there are institutions, there are many so-called civic organizations. We would not hesitate to state that. There are many civic organizations whose agenda is actually to push this comprehensive sexual education. And if you search on Google, you will actually find these materials. You'll find some of this curriculum. It's out there. It is actually available. You'll find some organizations that do not hide their identity, and they are actually pushing these agendas to schools and institutions and working in some of the marginalized communities, among marginalized communities, and openly. So really, it's a very, very serious problem. So Antoninah, I think what you've opened a very serious issue, especially the documentation there and some of the role play. I think what we can do is tell us exactly how these actually, so that then, for example, if a parent has a child in school and they came across those materials, how do they tell there's something suspicious about these materials? And I guess maybe also the whole idea of once these materials are introduced, certain behaviors are triggered in the children. So that then the parent has multiple, kind of antennas. You have antennas, you're checking for the books, you're checking for behavior, you're checking for, we need that kind of, how do I tell? If I suspect my child, perhaps he's listening to the wrong teacher or is interacting with some wrong material, how do I pick that up? From just simple conversation and behavior observation. Okay.
And that's a very valid question, because what parents sadly end up seeing is just the fruit. So like right now, if you talk to many parents, especially parents of teenagers, parents are very concerned that their children are truant. Their children are no longer performing in school. Their children no longer have an interest in education and academics. Their children who were once very godly, going to church, are no longer interested in going to church. Some have even gone into the extremities of they're in alcohol, they're suicidal, they're taking drugs. Those are the conversations that are predominant in our conversations as parents. Sadly, whereas these are the fruits, parents have not understood what is in the root.
Okay.
What are the seeds that have been laid? Because when you teach children the kind of stuff that I have shared with you, automatically children are curious. And what you have basically told them is, if your parents haven't told you this, they're hiding a good thing from you. Okay? So what have you done? You have created a wedge between parents and their children. So the children are going to go and practice these things. What happens then? I'm a certified trauma therapist and a theologian. And one of the basic things that we know is that the human brain is the last organ in the body, in the human body, to mature. So a child, a girl or a boy will mature from age around 12, 13, 14, thereabout. And they're able to carry a child. They're able to get pregnant. A boy is able to impregnate a girl. But their frontal cortex, which is the basis of our making rational decisions, will not mature until you're 24. So if you have introduced this content to an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, you have thrown them into the sea of sexualization. Once they begin that habit, their mind cannot process it. So what happens? The child will begin to get into harmful vices. They will begin to try out with alcohol, because how do I deal with the fact that I'm now addicted to pornography? How do I deal with that? And I can't confront daddy, I can't confront mommy. Because the reality is that parents are no longer as close to their children. But with this kind of content, the content has alienated children from their parents. So the children can no longer go to their parents as their first stop of I'm in trouble.
Okay.
So the child is suffering. The parent will see the truants. The parent will pick a cane and begin to discipline the way he knows how.
Okay.
Utawacha pombe. You will not take drugs in my house. But you have not dealt with the root of the problem.
So I think if I want just to pick from there, so one of the things, so you're saying some of the signs, some of the things to pick up immediately is if a child,
any change in behavior,
and especially the whole idea of like the child beginning to isolate and kind of separate themselves
and rebellion.
And rebellion, you know, some rebellion of some kind, you know, I know what I'm doing, and you know, mommy, maybe you need to leave me alone, and things like that.
And the phones.
Oh my goodness.
They're on the phone too much. And when you come into the room, the screen is changed. What's happening in there? I usually tell my children, I'm all about your business.
Okay.
And I'm going to be in all your business, in what you watch, in who you're chatting with, and I will even limit who you're chatting with and on which platforms you will go. Why? Because there are dangers out there you cannot see. And so parents need to be on the lookout. Watch out even for the house managers. Because some of our children have been introduced into some of these realities because of also what is happening in the house. Watch out even for abuse that is taking place. Like during the COVID, that space when we had the COVID-19, there were so many cases of incest reported. So whereas there is this information that is coming into children, there is also the reality of abuse that is taking place in the houses. So this calls for parents to be extra vigilant. Spend time with your children. This is now a conversation worth having. And throw it even as questions to the children. What do you think about this? What do you imagine happens when people talk about sex? Now, don't assume they do not know. But let it come from you authoritatively. What are the values? What are the standards of what is right and wrong? And I usually say this. Hata mwizi hataki kuibiwa. Even a robber does not want to be robbed.
Yes.
I did some outreach on Koinange Street of the ladies of the night. And one particular one, hearing that God will punish her son Kevin because of her conduct, pulled the skirt down and said, I am working so hard to make sure I get fees for Kevin, but if God will punish Kevin so that one day he's coming here to look for prostitutes, I am going back home, Nanita Okoka. I'm going to get saved.
Yes.
What is she communicating? I do not want my children in this lifestyle.
Okay.
And so this reality of sexualization, when you do your homework, you will realize the people behind it are pedophiles. Pedophiles who on the surface look so good with their children. They're very protective of their children. They even keep their children from Facebook and other platforms. But then behind the scenes, they want to have a right to have children, sex with children. So comprehensive sexuality education is ideally to groom children to be, relaxed around the environment of anyone who would want to have sex with them. But the worst thing right now, as we discuss this in Kenya, is the reality that comprehensive sexuality education was actually passed as a motion in our parliament in August of 2023. The Kirinyaga Women Rep presented this motion and it went through.
Okay.
Few weeks later, the then CS of Education announces that there is a new compulsory curriculum that is called Comprehensive Health Education. And we are asking as parents, what is the content of this? And how can it be compulsory in all our schools? What is the content of this, and could it be the same one that was passed by our parliament? And so it calls for the vigilance of parents. Be aware it is not safe. The cartoons your children are watching are not safe. The materials, the programs, the movies they're watching are not safe. So what do you do as a parent? First, stop. Seek God's wisdom. And that's one of the things that we tell parents. If you remember what Jesus advised, he was on his way to Calvary. He's carrying a heavy cross. He falls down. The women of Jerusalem come carrying water, and they're crying for him. What did he tell them? Don't cry for me. Go and weep for yourselves and for your children.
Absolutely.
I think he knew CSC is coming. And we need to pray for our children.
I'm going to hold you there for a minute. Thank you so much. Antoninah here is telling it as it is. And I can tell you, well, you need to watch out for your children. You know more, you cannot afford to blink. There are people out there out to actually mess up our children. I mean, they don't care. I mean, I guess they are working behind, they are motivated. I don't want even to go into that. But let me just want to acknowledge some of the people that are following this conversation. Karen Mwehaki, looking forward to this conversation. Karen, your first business as a parent is to protect your children. That's your first business as a parent. Dennis over here is saying that parents gather here and listen to how our children's lives are being destroyed. Thank you so much, Dennis, for that comment. David Kingola here, great conversation. It calls for vigilance. All parents to take care of their children. Parents, you need to be vigilant. You can't afford to close your eyes. No. I mean, you hear some school, and I mean, maybe the Ministry of Education, or whatever ministry it is, whatever department, whatever state memo that has come, you need to listen very carefully. When you go for those parents programs in your school, please pay attention. Look at the materials. Look at the content. Ask as many questions as possible, because your children counts, and whatever goes into the head of your children, you are responsible. Thank you so much, those of you that are following this conversation. Absolutely amazing. Let me just maybe just pick up some of the comments on the Facebook side of things. Thank you for following this conversation. Indeed, a couple of comments here. Let me check them out. All right, okay. I don't know, maybe I'm the one who is not picking them out correctly. When I pick them out, I will read them. Thank you so much. Thank you for following this conversation. Please keep it here, share, and make sure your friends are following this. So, Antoninah, So I think you've mentioned a couple of things, a couple of warning signs. And it looks like we might not finish this conversation, but so a child becomes, to behave straightly, maybe they want their independence and things like that. The other thing is any sign of drug abuse or withdrawal of any kind. And of course, maybe friends and stuff like that. If you notice that your child is behaving straightly and they have this, and maybe you even discover that they are friends and they are also defending their friends, or there are some events they are interested in, how do you deal with that? How do you, let's assume that you actually notice that your child is in trouble.
Yes.
How do you walk them out of that trouble?
Yeah. And again, another very valid question, because we need solutions.
Yes.
And parents are solution bringers in the household.
Yes.
The first thing that you must do is go to God.
Yes.
Because there are things you will not see on the surface, but God will reveal to you concerning your children. Please do not forget that the greatest support system we have in parenting is God. He calls himself Father. And it's very interesting that in the plethora of gods, and many religions have different deities, but it is only Yahweh who says he is Father. In other words, for every mommy and every daddy, there's a parent in heaven who is very eager to give you support.
Yes.
He also says that children are a gift to you. And then he says, like arrows in the hands of a warrior, so are the children in the quiver of the parent.
Right.
And so God is saying our children are arrows. What do you do with arrows? You don't hang them in the house. It's like bullets.
Yes.
You use them for battle. But many times when we approach parenting, we have seldom approached parenting from a warfare perspective. And that's exactly what God would have you do. Become aware that there is an imprinting warfare against your child's mind. And the battle is who wins the imprinting. Is it mommy and daddy with their values, or is it the world with its values?
Right.
The world has no other agenda. There are people who look at your children and they're thinking, how do we get you to become customers of our brew? Others are looking at your children and thinking, how do we hook you up into my cocaine business? That's what the world is thinking. But what are you thinking? Every mommy and daddy invest in their children knowing one day when I'm old, gray-haired, toothless, and bent, I want to see grandchildren around. But that is not automatic anymore. No, you have to be intentional to invest with godly values. So number 2 is talk to your child. Create rapport with your child. Right now that they are on holiday, take time out. Take leave if you have to. Spend an afternoon with that child. Find out what is happening to them. I was in a salon not too long ago, and the person who's, there's another client who was there, and she's just going on and on about her frustration with her daughter who is in a school, in one of the girls' schools in Moranga. The girl is in Form 2 right now and is already telling mother, I want you to get me out of this school. Why? Because of lesbianism. Girls, the senior girls are coming into their dormitory, they are raping them, they are inserting, all manner of paraphernalia. If you try to reject, they are abusing them. And she's telling the mother, get me out of this school. And the mother is like, me, I'm frustrated. I don't have money to change schools. Lakini aki ya Mungu, akiingia kwa hiyo life, mimi nitamuua. Now, what are you hearing? I'm hearing a conflicted parent. She can hear the cry of her daughter, but she's feeling tied as far as what is the solution that she can get. But I want to say, mommy and daddy, before academics is the well-being of your child.
Yes.
So if your child is going to undergo abuse, the likelihood is if you don't get her out, she might become suicidal. And when the child commits suicide, what do? You cannot even say saidia serikali.
Oh man, I'm telling you.
It will be too late. So have a conversation with these children. But number 3 also, let us band together. Because we are talking about systemic evils. We are talking about people in leadership who have received monies to corrupt our children. So unless we gather together and say we are not going to support anyone who is against the well-being of our children, and literally take the necessary steps that is required, get them out of office.
Right.
Because government must be seen to protect the least of us. I usually tell people, even when we go for elections, ask yourself, this person I'm going to tick, if I am not alive, can I trust my children with this person?
Absolutely.
If the answer is no, you have no business electing them. And so we have to take these matters to the next level. We have to band together. That's why we are inviting this conversation. Join Mzazi, the intentional parent, so that we speak with one voice and we can be able to push back on those evils.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think you've thrown a very, very big challenge to many, many parents out there. Huge, huge challenge. Including mentioning the fact that, a bill was passed in 2023.
Yes.
Quietly, I mean, we kind of seem to have this sort of resignation. Whatever goes on in Paria, those guys, we know they're mad. They do crazy things, and there's nothing we can do out here. You are opening our eyes.
Oh, yes.
So we have to get involved. Mzazi program. Let's talk about this organization, your organization, the Mzazi program. What are some of the things that you do? What are some of the programs that actually you involve? Do you have a training program for parents? Do you have outreach programs? Do you have branches?
Yes.
Do you have chapters? How
Yes.
can, if somebody wants to join Mzazi,
Yes.
how do they do that? And how can other people come together? Are you looking for partners? What
Yes.
sort of partners
Yes.
would be appropriate to work with your organization? So
Yes.
I need to open that, because I want us to have, by the time we are done here,
Yes, yes.
talk about things people can do like immediately.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I am opening this wide invitation.
Right.
To every person who fears God, every person who cares about children. Welcome to Mzazi, the intentional parent. It is a grassroots movement.
Okay.
The organization that we registered is called Uzao.
Yes.
Uzao Limited, meaning that we are going out there. It is one generation rescuing another generation. So our generation being enlightened, and we go out there to rescue the next generation. We have regional gatekeepers across this nation. We have men and women who have devoted themselves to protect children. How do we protect children? Number one, we go into schools and we create awareness to our children, because our children as well have the ability and the voice to push back and say, no, this is not what we were taught back at home.
Right.
If you remember, Gigi, when we were growing up, we were told you'll go to high school, they'll tell you came from monkeys. Answer that on the paper, but you didn't come from a monkey. What was that? You were immunized. Yes. You were taught that this is what the world will teach you, but this is the truth.
Yes.
So we are going into schools and we are saying, parents, let's band together, 3, 4, 5. Let's go into primary schools, because they are targeting our children from grade 4. So let's go in there and begin to teach our children values. We have programs for that. We also do trainings in churches. We do trainings in chamas. We do trainings in different estates and villages, where we encourage parents, come together, pray for your children.
Right.
When you gather together to pray for your children, you need capacity building. That is why we exist. We have materials that we will provide you with. We give you the details that you need to even understand how big is this battle, so that you know how to get your sleeves up and running. But in the bigger scheme of things, and I'm so grateful to God because of an initiative that KCPF has begun, and bringing in all of us pro-family and pro-life organizations together, there is a conversation of having a referendum. Because these realities are happening because there is a gap in our constitution. And those gaps must be sealed. Mswahili told us, usipoziba ufa utajenga ukuta. If you do not seal the gaps, you're going to end up having to redo the entire wall.
Right.
So we are saying there are gaps in this constitution that have allowed for pornography, allowed for abortion, allowed for LGBTQ conversations and ideologies. It is that needs to be sealed. But For that to happen, we need the IEBC, and we need 1 million signatures across the country. So one of the campaigns that we are engaged in right now is recruiting men and women, because we must raise the 1 million in order to protect our children. So you join us, and we need partners. May I just read something that was in our headlines? So it's okay for you, and you can find this. On 28th of February 2023, a lot of evil happened in 2023. We saw it in our headlines that the former US president's wife, Jill Biden, landed in Kenya. And the headline read for us that she has donated 16 billion shillings. And the headlines read, it is for the drought-stricken areas in Kenya. 2 weeks after that, on 4th of March, the ambassador of the US then gave this announcement that over the past, and I'm just reading verbatim, over the past week, my team and I met with the LGBTQ plus community and stakeholders to support the human rights of LGBTQ plus persons. The US proudly advances efforts to protect LGBTQ plus persons from discrimination and violence, and will continue to stand up for human rights and equality. So the question is, what was the 16 billion for? Drought? The administrator is telling you, my priority is promoting and advancing LGBTQ rights. A month later, on the 14th of March, a girls' school in Kajiado is closed for lesbianism. I call a friend who works there, and I'm like, what is this I'm seeing online? Your school has been closed for lesbianism? And she's like, Pastor Antoninah, what I have seen here, I have never experienced for the 15 years I've been a teacher. The senior girls are raping the young girls. What does that tell you? It tells me that our boarding school have become recruitment centers for this lifestyle of lesbianism and homosexuality. So Mzazi, next week as you're taking your children to school, you probably need to have a conversation with the class teacher. You need to have a conversation with the school principal and find out, what is the environment in this school? Is it safe for our children? And if there are such realities in the school, how do we get information as parents? Because we do not want to bury our children. So Mzazi, take responsibility. Take this information, go and talk to the school principal. That's what I did. I went to my children's school and I talked to the director, and I was like, Director, Madam, are you aware that there is this conversation, there is this life skills that is being taught to children? And by the time I was through, she was like, that is very enlightening. I have my eyes open and I will not allow it in my school. Right. That's what we need to do. We empower one another, we support one another. This work, unfortunately, does not have 16 billion.
Right.
We need people who can facilitate these conversations to happen. Thank you so much for giving us a platform. Because Jesus says to broadcast whatever he tells us in secret, broadcast aloud. And I thank God for Gigi Report, because this is a platform where we get to broadcast this. Those other people who hear this and they're convicted in their hearts, please open your spaces. We will come, we will create awareness. But we need the fuel to move. So make that available for us.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. I am telling you, Antoninah here, absolutely on fire. And I don't know. I have a couple of comments here I would have read. Maybe I can read very, very briefly here on YouTube channel, Kiroto Christian TV, Central Kenya, Wazazi. We must arise. We must speak this boldly. We must become intentional. And Dennis says, Mzazi, the intentional parents, or the Mzazi, sorry, the Mzazi in Kenya should gather and join this battle. Can only be won in unity to reverse what already is ratified by Parliament. So anyway, we are just coming to the end of this, and I believe you have heard the passion, the heart of my guest here, Antoninah. She is so passionate about taking the word out there. Please don't let them have your children. So Antoninah, we are out of time.
Yes.
Maybe you need to give some of the the usual stuff: social media handles,
yes,
website, email, and telephone number.
Okay.
So that people know how to reach you, and so that then we can take this conversation forward. All right. So you have your camera there as we end this conversation. All right.
Thank you very much for having me. And our website is www.godfrey www.uzaoafrica.org. That is www.uzaoafrica. Uzao is UZAO Africa.org. You can SMS us, WhatsApp us, or call us on this number +254 113 093 891. I'll repeat that. It is +254 113 093 891. If you call us during the office hours, that call is going to go through. In case you communicate in the evening, do that through SMS and we will be able to get back to you. Our email address is uzaoafrica@gmail.com. uzaoafrica@gmail.com. If you go to Facebook, our Facebook page is Mzazi, the Intentional Parent. Please feel free to interact with us. We are more than eager to come to where you're at.
Thank you so much. I'm telling you, that's all we had for you. This is the conversation. Always, as we always say, deep, bold, and honest conversations. That's all we had time for today. And we got to end this. Thank you very, very much indeed for staying tuned in. And I believe, please get in touch with my guest here, Antoninah. Please reach out to them. Find a way you can partner with them. And I believe that you have saved a child out there who may end up, who would have otherwise ended up in a very, very dark place. So, God bless you so much. I believe that we'll find time to return to this kind of conversation. God bless you. I have been your host, Godfrey Gichuki. The Gigi Report is always here every Friday evening, 8 o'clock. Keep it elevated. God bless you. We'll see you another day. Bye for now.